Guys, there's no words to mince about it. It is hot. We are in the middle of a huge heat wave here in the Carolinas, and we have not one but two Subarus with failed AC systems. They just couldn't keep up to the stress and strain of the intense heat we've had this week. Now, first off, we've got a 2017 Subaru Forester here with an AC compressor failure, and we've got a Subaru Sandbar off screen with another failed AC compressor. Now we're gonna get into diagnosing, going over some of the things to look for when your AC compressor fails, and talk about the failures that are common on the newer Foresters, Crosstreks, and Imprezas with the Vallejo AC compressor. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. So to start things off, first off, we might be under the gun a little bit. There's a thunderstorm rolling in. We've got the snap-on dual polar tech all ready to go. We are going to pull the refrigerant charge out of this Forester. The AC compressor failure is pretty clear. I've seen this failure many times before. If you guys that have watched the channel and been around for a while, think back to a video I think from last summer with my mother's 2014 Forester. Her Vallejo AC compressor failed in a very similar way, and for whatever reason they all seem to fail in a very similar way. They do have a high failure rate. This car has 109,000 miles on the clock. I believe my mother's failed at 220,000 miles. Now, I don't think that was the original AC compressor on it either when we looked at it. So this is the compressor in question. As you can see there, there is the tag. It is a Vallejo, V-A-L-E-O. We got the part number there. And similar to how my mother's Forester failed, we can see the spray of oil on the oil filter in the oil filter housing. We can see it prevalent here under the shield for the belt. And we can see it slung all the way around on the water pump pulley, on the crank pulley, everything in a circular pattern coming out from the clutch. And as you can see on the clutch, you can see the streaks here from the oil that's been slung out centrifugally. Now, one of the main failures with these Vallejo AC compressors is one, there's been a high complaint with noises. A lot of people got them and they were just noisy, straight up noisy. They made noise when the clutch would engage. They would make noise when they would start up. It wasn't always an issue with the compressor other than an audible noise that a lot of people would complain about. From there, it seems that a ton of them have issues with the clutch, front bearing, and or the front seal. Now, I'm assuming this one blew the front seal out from the oil UV dye and everything we see coming out from behind the clutch there. My mother's blew the front seal out and she kept running it and dumped all the oil out, and eventually it seized up the compressor and burnt the clutch off of it. Now, I've seen both failures. I've seen lots of these failures, not just in person, but also on the Subaru technician, dealer technician Facebook page. It is a high failure item. I don't know exactly why, but it is. So this compressor is about $1,280 if I remember right, full list price. We're gonna try to get the compressor for her. Another issue with this is there's no good aftermarket replacements for this compressor. You basically have to go to Subaru and Vallejo for this AC compressor. I put a cheap aftermarket compressor on my mother's Forester because she's near 80 years old, retired, all that good stuff. She didn't want to spend all the money on the car, especially when we only paid like $2,400 for her Forester off a marketplace. So we rolled the dice, and so far it's been holding out, but I'm just waiting for the call of my AC quit working again. So we have, again, compressor failure. We don't need to go through anything other than hooking up the machine and drawing out whatever refrigerant charge is left in the system. Now, there is a charge left because when I took the caps off earlier, I did hear a little bit of a spritz. It was cooling some, but it was not cold. So hopefully the compressor did not grenade itself. Hopefully all this was the seal going, dumping out some refrigerant, dumping out some oil, and that means that we can just replace a compressor. If the compressor went so far as to grenade itself and throw metal shrapnel through the system, like what happens normally when a compressor catastrophically fails, then you have to flush all of your lines out. You have to replace your thermal expansion valve. You have to replace your condenser in the front because of the micro channels. You cannot flush it out on modern vehicles. And it's a pain in the butt. You got a lot of labor, a lot of time, and a lot more components to replace than just the compressor. But luckily, the way these fail, normally, it's either a clutch failure, front seal failure, etc., and you can get away with just putting a compressor on it without having to flush the entire system. Another common issue on this generation of Forester, as we discussed before and made a video about before, is this AC line right here and its proximity to the battery. Now, a lot of times what happens is that people are careless in replacing these batteries. They jerk them up or they slam them down, and they put a lot of force on this hose here, and it's prone to start leaking at one or both of the crimp connectors between the aluminum hard line and the flexible rubber line. And normally you'll see oily spots, you'll see buildup, you'll see some kind of wetness there. Now, this is just grease, oil, dirt accumulation. It's not what I would look for a failed hose. But again, that's another point to look at on these cars, specifically the Impreza, the Crosstrek, and the Forester, because of this way that the lines run beside the battery. Now, why did Subaru use this Vallejo electronic clutch compressor on the Forester, Impreza, and Crosstrek rather than the Denso variable displacement compressor they used on Legacy, Outback, and I believe Ascent? I don't know. I honestly don't. It's just either the complexity of the system internally in the vehicle, or it's something to do with the the size of the interior space, the volume of air needed to be cooled is larger in the Outback and the Ascent versus the Forester, Impreza, and Crosstrek, so they put a smaller compressor on it. Maybe it's for fuel economy on them. I don't specifically know the 100% reason for it, but they just have a much higher failure rate. Now, moving on to this little KS4 sandbar. Now, this one has a completely different failure. Yes, the compressor has failed, but it internally grenaded. Essentially, it wiped itself out. It had a full refrigerant charge, likely had a full charge of oil still in it, but whatever reason, the compressor catastrophically failed inside. Now, we'll go through and we'll hook up the gauges and we'll talk about things to look for in diagnosing a compressor failure. This one was very easy to figure out. The system passed a leak test. There was no leaks in the system. It was fully charged when I got it. I recharged it full to capacity, turned the AC system on. We saw that the clutch would engage, the condenser fan would come on. Everything was working as it should be, but our pressures were equalized and low. There was no movement of the compressor moving that refrigerant between the high pressure side and the low pressure side. And we have both sides equalizing and lower than a static charge pressure. You got a bad compressor, especially since inside these vehicles they have a sight glass, and you could clearly see on the sight glass no refrigerant was moving through the system. So very quick, easy to diagnose that this is a total catastrophic failure of this AC compressor and nothing more. The problem is this AC compressor is discontinued and you cannot buy it new from Subaru. If I remember right, I believe this compressor is a Zexel brand. I've got some numbers on it. I've looked at Sandbar Squad on Facebook, trying to find help. Apparently, it's like finding a needle in a haystack to find a good AC compressor for these Subaru sandbars now, as they are aging plus 25 years of age. But we're going to get online and see if we can find something to get this guy some cool air again. In the meantime, it's just going to have to sit here a while. So as I said, we know 100%, or I know 100%, that this one is completely failed, catastrophic failure. Compressor is no good, not moving any refrigerant. Like I said, we'll hook up the gauges in a minute just to show you exactly what you would see in that case. So you at home, if you're diagnosing or starting to dabble in your own AC work, you can figure out and diagnose a failed compressor yourself, or know what to look for as far as pressure gauges are concerned. Now, as far as the failure on this Forester is concerned, we don't specifically know if it was just a front seal that blew out and dropped the refrigerant charge, or if the compressor catastrophically failed inside as well. So what we're going to do is hook up our AC machine, draw our refrigerant charge out, and measure it against the specification to see if it was low or how much refrigerant leaked out if there's any still in the system at all. And once we got that, we might shoot a charge in it really quickly just to see if the AC system works and check pressures to make sure that the compressor is not shot. It's just the front seal, but we might not do that. We'll just have to see. So first off, let's go ahead and hook up the recovery machine and recover what, if anything, is left in this system. Luckily, on these modern systems, everything is close and right together. Looks like we have no charge left in this. I just ran down, oh, there's a little bit of gas, heard a little bit of hiss, but I don't think we got anything. So looking at our pressure gauges, nil, there's nothing in here. We'll go ahead and go for a recovery cycle just to make sure, but it looks like we're completely out of gas. So the charge was too low to even do a recovery, so we're just going to do a vacuum just to see how severe the leak is and how slowly it will lose this vacuum. So that leak is pretty good. As you can see, as soon as I stopped the vacuum, it started dumping off that vacuum. It is not holding well at all. So it is a pretty sizable leak there at that compressor front seal. So we've got the system charged now. I am feeling some cool air. It is coming down. The compressor did kick on. It is quite noisy, but looks like the system is operating correctly. It looks like our only issue is the nose seal on this compressor. So we should be fine to just replace the compressor and recharge the system rather than have to flush out and replace components other than the compressor. Now, as we give the car some RPMs, it is pulling on down past 60 down to 50 and will likely cool down like it should. We're going to go under the hood and check pressures real quick as our AC recovery machine is finishing clearing. And our pressures are looking pretty good right now. Low side is where it should be, high side is where it should be. Ambient temperature is about 89, 90 degrees right now. So again, looks like mechanically our compressor is sound. Again, our only issue was that front seal leaking and allowing the compressor to lose refrigerant and let the system lose refrigerant to the point where it shut down. It would no longer cool and no longer activate the compressor or move the heat from inside the vehicle to outside the vehicle. Now we got our recovery machine hooked back up, going ahead and pulling out as much of that charge as we can before it leaks back out through that bad compressor seal. Now with the failure on this sandbar, as you can see with the pressure gauge, the pressures are equalized and low. Static pressure should be about 100 PSI on both sides. We are showing about 75 on both sides. Compressor is engaged and turning, but we have equalized pressures and no real buildup of anything. Also with this truck, we have a sight glass for our refrigerant, and as we can see, there is no movement of refrigerant in the system at all. It's not doing anything. So knowing that the system is fully charged to specification, there's no leaks in the system, and that we have equalized low pressure on both the high and low side, and no sight glass visible movement of refrigerant through the system. Compressor is what moves refrigerant through the system. Nothing's moving, the compressor's not pushing anything, so bad compressor. Recovery process is done on the Forester. We only lost a couple of tenths of a pound of refrigerant. We'll go ahead, finish this up, and park it off to the side. We got to figure out about compressor we're ordering. We also need to do an inspection on the brakes as well as a Starlink system. There's some audio issues. We'll cover that in a different video. And we'll go ahead and recover the refrigerant from this truck as well, just so we have it in the machine. It's not doing any good sitting in here with a system that doesn't work. So guys, there you have it. Two types of AC compressor failures on Subaru, what to look for, how to diagnose it, and what to check. One on that compressor shaft seal failing on that Forester, leaking out the refrigerant but still functioning, and a total catastrophic internal failure of a compressor on that sandbar where no refrigerant was moving whatsoever in the system. So two different ways to fail an AC compressor, although there's more than that, and you know how to check for it and how to diagnose it, and hopefully it helps some of you on your own personal vehicles or gave you a better understanding of some of the ways that compressors can fail and what ways to go about checking them. Now, why do those Vallejo compressors fail at such a high rate, especially compared to the Denso compressor on the larger Subaru models? It's really hard to say, especially since that compressor has been updated with a newer part number, different internals and things, and it's still causing failures. Why? I don't know if we'll ever have a definitive answer to why, but just to let you guys know, there are a higher amount of failures on those particular models, 2013, 2014, and newer. So guys, let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comment section below. Have you experienced one of these AC compressor failures on your Impreza, Crosstrek, or Forester? Let me know that experience down below. Did Subaru cover it under warranty? Was it goodwilled by Subaru, or did you have to pay for it out of your own pocket? As we said before, the aftermarket is not really coming in and giving us a good, affordable solution here, as the aftermarket compressors are much worse than the factory compressor. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place situation here. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for future Subaru and tool content. I'll see you guys in the next one.